Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Letter of Law. My name is Sarthak Bhardwaj, and today I am absolutely delighted, thrilled, excited, and so very honored to be in conversation with Mr. Vishal Vyas. Sir is a judge in the Rajasthan Judiciary. Not only that, Sir is also a musician, he's an avid reader, he's a writer, and a great lover of poetry. Throughout the past few months, I've benefited greatly from Sir's insights on law and life. And today I am very, very excited, sir, that you could join me today. Thank you so much for coming here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sarthak. Thanks for such a kind introduction. I will, make this very clear at the very outset that I am the one who reached out to Sarthak for this because I know no platform better than this Letters of Law, where, he is not only hosting these amazing personalities, but hosting great also. So thank you, Sarthak, for having me. I am absolutely delighted, thrilled, like all those words you said, equally to have on to be on this show today.
That's extremely kind of you, sir. In fact, when sir and I got to talking about this episode, we realized that on the internet, when we talk about the judiciary, there's a lot of content with regard to how to prepare for the exam, but not a lot of information on what the life of a judge is once he or she clears the examination. And that's what we have planned for this episode to discuss. And with that, I think we should get the ball rolling. So, sir, to start off, I always like to ask my guests to introduce themselves in any way that they find best describes themselves. So, sir, could you talk to us a little about your educational background, when you joined the service, and anything else you feel that our viewers should know about you?
Yeah, it's not very sort of interesting. I never really left Jaipur because of some personal reasons. I lost my father at the age of 14, so I had to stay in the city to be with my mom. So I did my schooling from St. Xavier's, Jaipur, then went on to complete my law from Jaipur only, Manipal University, Jaipur. I was also doing masters LLM in criminology from the same city, Jaipur, and meanwhile I was also preparing to become a judge. So it's life has been pretty much constant as far as my traveling goes. The Jaipur is not only my home city, but where I have spent my 26 years of life so far. And then I appeared for this Rajasthan Judicial Services exam. Fortunately, cleared it in the one go, and then went on to train for 1 year at the Rajasthan State Judicial Academy, Jodhpur. Then, currently I'm posted in this place called Navalgarh, Jhunjhunu. So that's pretty much it, if you ask.
That sounds very interesting and exciting, sir. And I like to unpack some of that. I can also see some really beautiful books stacked behind you. So we'll talk about
Yeah.
also if we can towards the end. So, but sir, to start right at the beginning, you said that once you cleared the examination, you underwent training at the Rajasthan Judicial Academy. And I'm curious to know about that because, so can you talk to us a little bit about what the experience was from your name appearing on the merit list to you taking the oath and then joining the academy? What has that journey been like, and what was that entire experience like?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very great starter question because that's what the discussion is all about today. Because a lot of these aspirants, when I was preparing, and when I interact with aspirants now, I see a lot of these aspirants. They do not really know what actually happens after they clear the exam. They just start preparing for the exam blindly, not knowing what is going to happen after the exam. And I'm sorry, what is going to happen after the exam. And it's very important to know. Now, let's not make this as a mystery, what is going to be, because you are preparing day in, day out, and you obviously needs to know that what it is going to be like. So after we clear the exam, to answer your first question, how was the feeling? The feeling was very, very good. You feel satisfied when you work hard for something and you see your name in the list, when you yourself feel that you deserve that spot. So that was the feeling which I was having, the feeling of content, feeling of satisfaction, that you worked hard for something and you achieved it. And that is the goal for these competitive exams, because at times they take mentally a toll on you, because you are not able to clear it in the first go, second go, so it gets very mentally very exhausted. So the feeling of satisfaction was there. But I was very, very sure that clearing the exam, and I will say this to everyone who is watching this currently right now, that clearing the exam is 1% of it. You would realize as you will clear the exam that life is much more than just an exam, than just a sheet of paper. What we actually hear is that exam paper is a sheet of paper is actually true. Because what you do after the clearing the exam is far more important. How you contribute in the service as a judicial officer is far more important than clearing the judicial services exam. So after clearing it, we now have to go through this 1 year mandatorily training program after the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court. Earlier, there used to be some sort of minimum practice and advocacy which you were supposed to do, but now young fresh law graduates can come right after the college, clear the exam, and they just have to go through this 1 year mandatory training program before they actually hold their independent court. And this 1 year training program is built very, very beautifully,
Right.
as far as my experience goes, because not only you interact with your batchmates and colleagues and a lot of judges, but they actually give you that courtroom experience where they actually make you sit alongside the judicial officers of various ranks, civil judges, senior civil judges, district session judges. So that gives you real exposure for 1 year. Alongside, there are some lectures at the academy which are also very, very fruitful. So this 1 year experience, if you utilize it well, if you enjoy it, if you learn law, it is not going to be like that you are someone who is not into practice and you're not now going to hold your independent court. How is it going to be like? You're going to be referee of the court. That this 1 year training program will make you that judicial officer which you really wish to become. And if I look back on the very first day of my court, I was not nervous. Very honestly, I was not nervous because of the reason that this 1 year training, I took it very, very seriously. So the program is built very, very beautifully. And then after the training program, they give you their individual course. So this is how it's structured.
That's very interesting, sir, because these days there's a lot of talk going around whether the training period is sufficient to equip a young judge in the practical aspects of the things, because many judges are now coming straight from law school. And it's really delightful to hear from you that that training period actually does the job. Can you talk a little bit more about what your life in training was like, especially, I'm sure because the years preceding that, you were busy preparing, your nose buried deep inside books, and now you had 1 year to learn the practical side of the law. So what was that year like? What did your daily routine look like in the academy, and what was life like there?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of these judicial academies, they have similar sort of pattern. I had this experience with Rajasthan State Judicial Academy, but I have had interaction with a lot of my friends from other states as well, and they are also following the same pattern. Nevertheless, in which there is some period in which you have to spend at academy, and academy days are wonderful. Like we see a lot of these UPSC candidates spending beautiful days at Labasna. It's no less. Where we wake up in the morning, you have yoga classes at the Rajasthan State Judicial Academy. They not only focuses on your academics and intellect portion, but also focuses more on your physical and mental health portion as well. So there is this yoga classes by the trainers, experts. Then we have to go and rush to the classes as far as academy is concerned. And there we have lectures from not only trial court level judges, but also judges from Honorable High Court and Honorable Supreme Court judges, and also from academicians, great academicians. A lot of people who came on your platform, also letters of law, they came to the academy for giving brilliant lectures. So this is what the academy is all about. They give you lectures, and also they give you practical exercises. Aspirants needs to know this, that they make you write orders and judgment during training in the academy by giving you real life problems. And because there are trial court judges coming for lectures, they will also tell you their experiences, because they are facing that heat which we are going to face after a couple of months. So these lectures are there. Along with lectures, very interestingly, they also organize educational trips as well, where they make you visit various areas and places of Rajasthan, because you're going to, serve in the state of Rajasthan. So it's important to know a little bit geography, cultural heritage background of this beautiful state of Rajasthan. So they organize that as well. And in between the training, they send you to these, court attachments, which, like I mentioned, where we sit, alongside the judicial officers. I'll come on to that a little later. So academy is a bit of mixture of that. And towards the end, they give you this certificate of completion of 1 year mandatory training. And your oath also starts from the training. A lot of people think that after they complete the training, then they take oath, but that's not true. The moment you clear the exam and the very first day of your training, that is the day where your service actually begins. That is the day you actually take oath of the office. And after the completion of the training, they give you this certificate that you have completed this 1 year training course and you are ready to hold your independent court. And meanwhile, in between, when they send during the court attachments, this is where we learn the practical experience. This is that one area which is very, very fruitful, where we actually see our seniors, how they are running court, how they are managing. Because judiciary is not about just knowing the law and applying that law to the facts. It's also about managing a court, being a referee of the court, like I said, where you are responsible for that particular court, for the files of that court, and there is administrative work as well. So we learn all of that during that particular phase, where we sit alongside the seniors, and those seniors are very, very helpful, because they are not getting any extra remuneration, pay, or anything for that, but they just have to teach us while they are running their court, in order to us to become a good judicial officer. So that's also a beautiful part of this training that I observed, that after 1 or 2 years, when I will sit in my court, and there would be this trainee who would be sitting next to me and having full faith and trust in me, and I have to make him learn about the work of a judge, I will consider this as a challenge, as an opportunity. So that's one interesting part of this training.
This sounds like such an enriching procedure and processor, and I'm so glad you could share that with us. So moving on, sir, could you talk to us a little bit about your first judgeship assignment? Which court were you given, and what your life was like as an absolutely fresh judge? Now, of course, you have some experience, and we'll talk about that also. But what was it like for you in the first few months? Were you nervous? Were you excited? What kind of challenges came your way, and how you handled them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very nostalgic question, because it has been only 10 months. But still, if I look back at my very first day, obviously there is some kind of adrenaline pump rushing in your blood, because now you have been given this responsibility, to hold the court. I was given the very first court. I am currently also posted in that court only. So my court was Gram Nyalay Court in Navalgarh, Junjunu. So this particular court runs from the feature of the Gram Nyalay Act 2008. So the feature of this court is the jurisdiction is specified in the Act itself, Gram Nyalay Act, and the officer of civil judge and judicial magistrate cadre would be the presiding officer of this court. And this court is having civil work, criminal work, and as well as maintenance and domestic violence work. So there is variety of work in this particular court as well. So on the very first day of my court also, I was having listed some civil files, some criminal files, and I'll share this experience because this can happen with you as well. On the very first day, I was having this civil file. You obviously do not have much knowledge what is the stage of that file, because it's your very first day, right? So there was these two lawyers who came before me, and they said that we have to argue a final civil argument for a civil case. So I could not say that you argue after a couple of days, because that file was listed for final arguments for the civil case. You have to be on your toes, and I was ready to listen to those civil arguments. And obviously, as per law, we have to pronounce the judgment also within prescribed period of time. So I listened to those civil arguments on the very first day of my court. I put the file for the judgment. I studied that file for 10 or 15 days. Then I realized, okay, this was the challenge which was thrown at me on the very first day. I took this as a challenge, and it was a very, very learning experience. That on the very first initial few days of of my service, when you go through a file and you pronounce a judgment, and when you pronounce a judgment, you read that file thoroughly. So that was a learning experience, that because of that judgment, I read through the whole file and I got to know about the stages of a civil suit. So this can happen with you. There were some bails also. I was also excited to give bail order, because every bail order which you give is, like, is very, very important. It reaches out to a final person, what effect it is going to be on that person. So I was very mindful how I construct my bail order. I sort of thought to maintain a balance between whether it is just to put this person behind the bars while the trial is going on. Similarly, on the very first day, I was also faced a lot of temporary injunctions applications, where parties would come and they would say that this is some matter which is of very urgent nature. Please grant us interim injunction. And in those cases, you do not have much time to read file. You just have to look at the file from the airplane mode and pass an interim order so as to protect the suit property. So these are some challenges which whosoever is watching this would face as a trial court judge on the very first day. And interestingly, you do not have any someone who would help you as a research, who would help you to read those files. Ultimately, it's only you who have to read those files and pass those orders, because you did this training for this day only.
That's a very, very, again, very exciting day in the life of a judge, especially for a young new judge. And I'm sure the aspirants watching this who are studying subjects like Specific Relief Act and CPC will feel, oh, suddenly the things that we're studying are being applied in court. So that's really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us, sir. So moving on, now that you've been 10 months into the service, what does a regular day look like in your life? What do you do from the moment you wake up till the time the court ends? In Delhi, the court timings are, I think, around 10 to 5. Are those the same in Rajasthan? What's your entire day like, a week like in your life?
Yeah, that's a discussion. That's not a question in itself. Yeah, we are also having these timings of 10 to 5 in Rajasthan. In couple of months in summers, it goes around 7 to 1, only for a couple of months, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. But broadly, it's 10 to 5 p.m. only. And I'll go in detail, but to sum it up, I'll make this very, very clear that not only you have to study to become a judge, but as far as my experience goes, after clearing the exam, I thought that you have to study 10 times more while you were preparing to become a judge. So because this service is all about studying, because you have to master those facts, you have to visualize those facts, you have to read that law whenever a new situation comes up before you. You have to apply that law to those facts. You have to pass a judgment. You are contributing in the evolution of law. You are interpreting law. So it requires study after court hours as well. It's very, very true. So your work also went around after court hours. It also stretches after the court hours. You have to read files. I don't think any judicial officer can say that after 5 p.m. I'm free. With utmost respect, with he and she cannot pass orders and judgments, sensible orders and judgments, because the timing of the court and the work which is there in the court does not allow you to read files with those silent amount of time where you can read those files. So you have to study. There's another myth which people are having, that judges do not have any personal life, they do not have any social life, because they have to study. Like I mentioned, you have to study 10 times while you are preparing, so they tend to think that they do not have any life apart from studying. That's not true. That's not entirely true, because if we look your and my personal common passion, we have this love for music. We love to play guitar. So whenever I find time, I still have my acoustic guitar in my posting place. I pick that guitar up, I play music, because you necessarily have to do something apart from your law, your daily routine, in order to make you efficient. because that's an escape for you. You cannot just blindly go into your work, because that is going to reduce your efficiency. So I am, this example, because I never really left my passion while I was a law student.
Right.
So this is what something I would advise everyone, that they can have their hobbies, their passion, they can still follow. Obviously, there needs to be a little bit realistic, which they can, carry, which they can do on a daily basis. And apart from that, also, law also is something I would say excites me, because we say that we once a law student is always a law student. You cannot think that you know enough in law. So your work life also, if you have decided to become a judge, your work life also excites you. If you ask me what is that one thing which excites me in judging, is passing orders and judgments, because I love to write. And every order and every judgment, when I try to structure it, when I try to frame it, I feel that this is a piece which is created by me, and that is something which excites me. So this is what daily routine is like. You need to take care of your physical health, because you're sitting 10 to 5, and because there is no much movement in the court, very frankly, you have to take care of your physical health. You should go for morning exercises after court. I also, what I do is take some time before I start studying with my daily routine. I take some time, I talk to my friends and families, because when you look back and you realize that your day is gone in a flash, and you have not interacted with people who are worthy, who made you reach this position. So you also stay in touch with all those friends and people who are very important to you. Then you give some hours, which is going to be very uh, more in the initial months of service, because you are relatively new.
Yeah.
But as the time will obviously pass by, you are going to be much experienced, you are going to be much acquainted with the structure, and it's going to take lesser amount of time. The time I used to take when in the initial month of service, while I was passing a judgment, was 8 to 10 hours to read a file, and it reduced as the time goes by, because I was also already acquainted with the system. This is what the life is all about. Practice makes a man perfect. So you have to study, you have to spend some amount of time, like you said, what is the day in the life of judge apart from handling the court. You have to bear in mind that you have to sit at home and you have to read those files as well. And that is interesting again, to sum it up, because every file, every problem, it's like a game, it's like a trick. You try to solve it. If you cannot solve it, you discuss it with people. I till this date also interact not only with my judges friends, but also with a lot of lawyer friends, because I always try to take their perspective, how they would argue a criminal case, how they would defend an accused. And I sort of think that what is the possibility, how I can reach to a good criminal judgment. Similarly, I interact with a lot of my lawyer friends who are dealing with civil matters, so as to know the best possible outcome for their judgment. So law is all about, I'm sure you also know this, law is all about discussion as well, rather than locking those doors and reading in isolation.
That's very well put, sir. And in fact, that leads me to my next question, because you said that a lot of your own thinking about the law comes from discussions with other people. And I've often heard that the life of a judge is supposed to be a little bit recluse. For instance, a judge is not supposed to interact a lot. A judge is supposed to speak only through his judgments, and they cannot have a huge social media following, or maybe cannot post their opinions or write blogs, things like that. So what's your entire take on that aspect of being a judge, where you're supposed to be a little withdrawn from the society so that you can do justice meaningfully and there's no conflict of interest? I may be wrong here, because I'm speaking only in terms of what I've heard. So I really don't know what the official picture is. So can you clarify on that and what that aspect of being a judge does to you?
It's a very interesting question, because when I cleared the exam, I always thought to myself that I am not going to have a, very unanimous life, a life which is, having a same kind of routine. I thought that, okay, judging is about judging, but you can contribute to your law, you can contribute with a little knowledge of law after you clear the exam in multi-dimensional ways. So I first of all thought that okay, I faced this tough journey while I was preparing. There was no one for me to guide. There was no one for me to motivate me or to give some sort of advices as to how to clear the exam. So I thought that would be the very first step where I can start, not only to contribute in the service and to contribute to the society, but what about that if I inspire people, if I educate people with my little knowledge of law, for aspirants, for law students, and if they went on to become a judge and they held their independent courts, that would be very satisfactory feeling that not only you are contributing in the service, but you are also contributing slightly in making those aspirants as a judicial officer. Obviously their hard work is there, but if you can share your little experience and if that can help them, you should do that. So that was the idea always back in there in the back of my mind. So I thought that okay, to answer your question, that what is the kind of life judicial officers can live. A lot of people have this myth that they have very aloof life, they cannot socialize much. But I thought until this date I have discussions with my seniors and friends, and I do what my heart says, and I feel that it's not wrong if you interact with young law students and if you advise them, if you motivate them for good. So it's an interaction. You are interacting with a lot of aspirants, you are interacting with a lot of people, and you are breaking the stereotype of becoming a aloof judge. You are breaking the stereotype of becoming a very social kind of judge. But I thought that why not? What if I balance out the advantages and disadvantages, I thought that it's an advantage. That if a serving judicial officer can educate people, if a serving judicial officer can interact and do an interview like this and discuss about daily life of a judge, where we see that there are not a lot of interviews based on this and there are a lot of interviews based on how to prepare. So why not? So this is something I thought I should do. Apart from it, obviously you have some sort of restrictions. You cannot go in public platform and give your political social opinions. So I thought okay, I will not give political and social opinions, but I love to write. Why cannot I write academically? Why I cannot write on legal topics? That should be allowed, because you are judge, you are passing orders and judgment, you are reading law. If you feel that you can explain a phenomenon or a legal concept by your words, then why not? So I thought okay, I should write for websites, legal websites, and if it's purely academical, it's correct. And yes, you have restrictions. You cannot speak on public platforms on your social and political opinions, but you can interact with people. It's not like you cannot interact with normal audience and people. But then again, now we are living in a life where we all are so busy and occupied with our work. Not only judges, lawyers, teachers, or anyone in the legal profession, we can devote our time to few worthy people. And that's what being a judge is also about. You have your friends and colleagues and people who are worthy, who are close to you. You interact with them, that there's no harm. And similarly, it's for normal every other person as well, because it's always better to have quality people in your life rather than to have such a big quantity. And you would realize this as your age will grow. So that's also same. Life has not changed, that I was interacting with a lot of people before clearing the exam. I am still interacting with a lot of people. But yes, having said all of that, to cut long story short, there is certain kind of image which you have to maintain in your public life, because people look up to you. People look up to you that this is some person we are reaching out, we are going out, and who is deciding our matters, who is deciding our fate. You have to be serious in your personal life within yourself, but you have to pretend to be serious, because it's also true. Because unless you have to pretend to be serious, because people look up to you as someone who is very responsible person. So if you will not respond, act or behave in a decent manner, people would lose. You're representing an institution, you're representing judiciary. People have that faith in judiciary, and that trust and faith, it will somehow be shaken up if you Do not behave how you are supposed to behave in public. I'm not saying you have to behave like a god or something.
Yeah.
I will very frankly say that you just have to behave like a good human being. That's it.
No, that's in fact very well put. And I'm glad that you are of that opinion, because this conversation that we are having, I'm sure, will benefit a lot of people who wish to become judges. They'll get to know about what kind of a life a judge will lead, which, like you rightfully pointed out, not many people are aware of, nor is it a thing that's taught to people who are preparing for the examination. And with that, sir, since we're coming to an end and we are short of time, I'll come to my final question, which is, now that you've served 10 months in the service, if you could, in very brief, sum it up for our viewers and also tell the aspirants that what is this actually that they're aspiring for and what kind of life awaits them.
Yeah. See, I will just say, even if I'm in service, whenever I interact with any law students, I never advise them very, very strongly to go for judicial services. I always advise them to go for where your heart lies,
Right.
what you can contribute, well. Just analyze in your law school also. I advise this to every aspirant and every law student. Just try to explore all those opportunities which is there in the legal field, because you have those 3 and 5 years to decide that.
Yeah.
Once you decide, what are the challenges, what are the professions, what are the opportunities, then see in which you can contribute well.
Yeah.
Identify for yourself what is that something in which you can contribute well, what is that something in which you will have satisfaction, and then start work towards it. Do not blindly take someone else's advice and start preparing for it. Once you decide, okay, if I wish to become a lawyer, then you target your work area, your hard work area towards how to become a good lawyer, how to become a successful lawyer. Similarly, for judicial services exam, if you have decided you want to become a judge, then you have to realize that you have to read those barracks, you have to sit at home and study. So ultimately, you have to do in life, you must do in life where your heart lies. And if you will do where your heart lies, and if you will be very, very honest with yourself, trust me, life, you have no idea, life would take you anywhere. Just a lot of my friends who were not able to clear the exam, they are still doing very, very good in their respective field. That does not make them a lesser of a person or a lesser of an intelligent person, because they are contributing in academics, they are contributing in lawyering. So this is my short and brief, and even if it sounds cliche, message to everyone, that do what your heart likes and then work towards it.
That's so encouraging. And sir, cliches are cliches because they're true. So it's very important that you said that. And this is sound advice not just for people who are wanting to be judges, but for people in general. And I am personally very, very inspired by your words. Thank you so much, sir. And with that, I feel that we can come to an end of today's conversation. I thank you so very much, Vishal sir, for taking time out, especially when you're on vacation, to speak with me. I got to learn a lot, and I'm sure that all the people who are watching this will also benefit greatly from your insights. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sarthak. I had fun too.